Mahogany Rush had no trouble getting the crowd standing and stomping as they appeared at the Agora Monday night, the MMS Night Out.
Frank, how long has Mahogany Rush actually been together? Because I really don't know too much about the history. You are something of a cult band.
Yeah.
In many ways, I think you've missed out in this country so far.
Well, we've been together since 1971. We've recently, this year, 1981, had a personnel change. We've made actually a lot of changes, not in personnel of the band, but in personnel of the overall structure of our organization. The only band personnel change has been the drummer. We've added a new guy named Tim Berry, who's a Washington, D.C. native. We're all Montreal, Canada residents and natives. And we got together back in 1971, just a bunch of guys just getting together to play, you know, and jam, really. And one gig followed one gig, and we started playing in parks and playing in high schools and colleges, and one thing led to another. And here we are, 9 albums later down the road and just starting to come to Britain now.
Why is it that it's been such a long time since you have come over here? Because within the last 18 months, there's been quite an explosion of very, very good Canadian bands in this country.
Well, I think we were here 3 or 4 years ago. We did a very small tour, well, not a small tour, but, you know, by comparison to what other bands have done. We played a few of the cities in England, and we played London at Hammersmith, and it was quite successful, actually, from a crowd standpoint, a musical standpoint. We thought that we would be back for sure. But we were involved with an American manager who really wanted to play things differently. He wanted to just... Every year would come around and he'd want to concentrate on more of this and more of that, and we kept saying, well, look, you know, let's go to Europe. We really feel that we could do well in Europe, and we know a lot of the bands from over there, you know. And he just would never play it that way. So we since split with him last October, and after we got all that finalized, we just said, look, let's go, you know, let's go to Europe, because we wanted to do it now for a while. So we called the Braun agency and said, listen, you know, we're available whenever. We'd like to start doing the UK and all these places. And they said, great, you know, and they put it together straight away. And here we are. We hope to do a lot more here, you know, in the future.
I'm sure it's a question you've been asked umpteen times. There's Rush in Canada, there's Mahogany Rush, which is you, right?
Yeah.
Now, how did it come about?
Okay, well, what happened was Rush come from Toronto, we come from Montreal, 2 cities about 350 miles apart. And we started approximately the same time back in 1971. I would venture to say we were probably around before they were, but they were probably around in a popular way before we were, so one balances the other. The name, it's a total coincidence that the name is similar, at least on my part, because where I derived the name for my band then was from something that nobody could have known about anyway. But in any case, it has caused a lot of confusion, and that's why, really, the original reason why Mahogany Rush became Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, and now it's so many new things on the Power of Rock and Roll album that's coming out. It's going to be a Frank Marino henceforth after that, you know. The problem still is quite large in America.
Confusing.
Yeah, very. I mean, you'd be surprised how confusing. A lot of people say, well, that can't be that bad, you know, Mahogany Rush or Rush, people would know by now, but it doesn't work that way. We still have that problem. Even record stores have the problem racking the albums. They get them, they put them in the same places, and they just don't know, because people will tend to refer to Mahogany Rush as Rush before they'll tend to refer to Rush as Mahogany Rush, you see? So it doesn't work twofold. It only sort of works like a one-way street, so...
So Mahogany Rush is going to go out the window, you're just going to become Frank Marino?
Yeah, I think it's going to... It sort of has been that way anyway, and the band, we all talked about it, and the band said, listen, you know, like, Mahogany Rush was really a 70s project, and since it's the 80s anyway, and really, you know, I have become the focal point, never really intending to be, but have become the focal point of this group for so long now that they're just content to play, you know, not for me, but for the band having my name, because they feel that it's probably a little more honest, you know.
Right. What's happening in the music scene in Canada? I mean, out of Canada, as I said, there has been quite an explosion of really good bands, April Wine, etc., etc.
Right.
Is the music scene on the radio like that?
It's funny, because you're seeing an explosion of Canadian acts in the UK, we're seeing an explosion of Canadian acts in America, but we're not really seeing an explosion of Canadian acts in Canada. I would venture to say we're seeing more of a re-explosion of British acts in Canada. And we've got they're bringing in a lot of new wave bands and punk bands and things like that. There's a very big trend towards club scene now in Canada, and the concert venue has gone away. And they're bringing in a lot of acts that'll do like 1,200 or 1,500 seat ballroom rock clubs, and I think that's the new scene there. Most of the acts that want to do anything of substance are going to the UK or America and really having great success now. It seems to all be coming together at one time.
Why do you think there is this differential then between what is happening on the radio scene in Canada and what is happening in the United States of America and here?
I really never could understand that. It's funny, being a native of Montreal, Canada for so long and having lived there, I really could never understand that. I don't know where they get their ideas to do things, but they always seem to be either one step behind the rest of the world or yet one step ahead in certain areas. Like I remember when Genesis became very, very, very big in North America, and it started in Montreal and in the province of Quebec. I mean, they were like huge there, and they couldn't get arrested anywhere else, and Montreal was like right behind them. They could sell out 3-4 nights at the Forum, at 18,000 seats plus. And then they became really big. So sometimes, sometimes Canada, more particularly French Canadians in Montreal, have been the forerunners to what was going to happen in America. But more often than not, I would say Canada as a whole is probably a little bit behind the rest of the world in certain respects. It never seems to be right in time. I don't know where the programs come from.
For the benefit of those people who are into playing the guitar, what sort of guitars do you like playing? What sort of instruments are you really into?
Yeah, well, I use the old 1961 Gibson SG Les Pauls. This was the only year that they were made this certain way. Like, they were made in 60 and 62 also, and they look practically identical, but there are subtle differences about the 61 Les Paul SG that I use, in that the neck is very flat. It's like a pancake sort of, and it's got a different, instead of a square or a dot on the fret piece, it's got like a crown shape, and these are the ways that you could tell this guitar, and it's just had the patent pending pickups. It's a really good guitar. I can't play. I've got like 3 of them, and they're very hard to find, and they're very expensive. And as for amplifiers, I use the acoustic 270 transistorized amplifiers with Fane speakers. I never heard a speaker make an amplifier sound good. I've heard amplifiers make a speaker sound good, or guitars make an amplifier sound good, but when I first tried those speakers, I said, wow, man, people have got to turn on to these things. That's not a plug, mind you, that's the truth. I really think those speakers are the best I've ever tried.
You've been at it now for 10 years.
Yeah.
9 albums you've had out, though this is, the current one is the 6th on CBS, I think I'm right in saying that.
That's right.
Which is very akin to REO Speedwagon. It took them like a decade to break.
Isn't that interesting? We were touring the same time as they were touring a decade ago. We were starting together. We seem to have followed the same kind of pattern as REO, except that in the wake of their recent success, I'm hoping that our recent success will be as much following, I hope that it'll follow at the same time rate as we started after them, because we seem to be like right on their heels, sort of. They just broke very, very big in America, and it looks like we're going to do exactly the same thing.